Today's Farm Bureau Capital Conversation is with Senator Bruce Maloch from Magnolia, serving District 12, Chairman of the Senate Rules, Resolutions, and Memorials Committee. What are the key elements in this year's budgeting process?
Well, we had really a couple of main issues coming into the session, and one was taxes and tax cuts, and the other was dealing with the private option. I was actually pleasantly surprised that we're already on track to deal with both of those early in the session. And of course, tax cuts, we're taking away some revenue. The private option affects the budget. And we've got some other issues, education related. We'll have to continue funding to maintain adequacy, some county jail reimbursement, Medicaid, traditional Medicaid expense, and the corrections department prisons issue are some of the main driving forces of the budget.
What do you think is ahead for career and technical education?
First of all, I'm optimistic that there's a greater emphasis on career and technical education because of the campaign really from both governor's candidates. Emphasis on workforce training that begins not only at the two-year technical college level, but pushing it back into the high schools. So I'm pleased with that increased emphasis. Of course, my background with FFA, agriculture education, is within career ed. I'm anxious to make certain that it has the support that it deserves as well as those other areas. Now, with that said, the governor just presented a budget that includes some cuts to several agencies, just a 1% blanket cut. So there was a cut to the overall funding of that agency that I'll want to explore in more detail, but I'm hopefully there is an additional emphasis that will be beneficial to that department and to the programs there.
How important is career and technical education?
I think it's critically important. Another issue now that we've dealt with, or that I'm hearing some of, is whether it should be moved back under the umbrella of the Department of Education. While I think there needs to be perhaps better communication between those two agencies, I do support leaving it as a standalone agency because I think it receives more emphasis there. There are so many things in preparing our young people for job training, career education, that I think it needs and will receive more emphasis than it has in the past, and I will support that.
Explain the tax cut bill that passed the Senate last week.
We dealt with Senate Bill 6, which was the tax cut bill that was proposed by the governor, carried by Senator Dismang last week. That particular bill focused with a reduction in the income tax rates for the middle class, basically from $21,000 up to $75,000. It delayed some tax cuts for higher income earners of just the 0.1% tax cut that we passed 2 years ago. It pushed that out a year. And then the other thing that's still a little bit controversial in the legislature is it repealed a capital gains tax break that was passed 2 years ago. The ultimate revenue impact to the governor's bill as proposed is only $12.8 million for the next fiscal year. Now it's higher the second fiscal year, but the House is still considering that bill. There's still some heartburn out there over the repeal of the capital gains tax break, and I think there will be a move to put some of that back in. Of course, it'll have some revenue impact, but as we move along in this session, I think we can deal with that issue.
How do legislators balance the demands of family, career, and work in the General Assembly?
It's not easy. But first of all, I still support a citizen legislature. Legislators that still have jobs and are in what I call the real world. For me, I work at a bank in Magnolia. I also have a farm, run some cattle. I'm at the Capitol at my office usually before 6 o'clock every morning. I'm doing some bank work, emails, I'm reading bills and getting ready for the day's activities. I have a son-in-law, fortunately, that checks cows and feeds cows for me during the week. And in my bank work, I've got a number of emails that I've responded to already this morning. And so technology, allows us to do a lot of things like that. And then it's important still to have family time. And so, calls to my wife and to grandkids and kids usually every evening helps with that, and then spending some quality time with them on weekends when I can.